I'm Logan Hayes, and if someone had told me that the most important day of my life would begin before sunrise on an almost empty beach in Malibu, I would have laughed. At 34, I believed life had already shown me every surprise it had to offer. I had spent years as an ocean lifeguard before becoming a freelance coastal photographer. My mornings belonged to the sea, my camera, and the quiet moments when the horizon slowly caught fire beneath the rising sun. That morning looked ordinary. The waves rolled toward the shore with a gentle rhythm, and the sky shifted from deep navy to shades of orange and gold. A cool breeze carried the scent of salt and seaweed, while a few gulls circled overhead, searching for breakfast. I adjusted my camera lens and focused on the breaking surf, hoping to capture the perfect wave before the beach filled with tourists. Then I noticed her. She stood alone near the waterline, wearing a light blue dress that fluttered in the wind. It wasn't beach clothing, which immediately caught my attention. She wasn't carrying sandals or a towel. She wasn't looking at the sunrise like everyone else who wandered onto this stretch of sand. She was staring straight at the ocean, completely motionless. Something about the way she stood made me uneasy. Years of watching people near dangerous water had sharpened my instincts. Most visitors admired the sea. She looked as though she was saying goodbye to it. I lowered my camera and watched her for another minute. She stepped into the water. The waves reached her ankles, then her knees. She never hesitated. I started walking toward her, telling myself she probably just wanted an early swim. Another wave crashed against her waist. She kept going. "Miss!" I shouted. She didn't even turn around. The current beyond that sandbar was one of the strongest along this part of the coast. Tourists rarely knew it existed until it was too late. I dropped my camera onto the dry sand and ran. By the time I reached the shoreline, she was already struggling. A powerful wave slammed into her from the side. She disappeared. For one terrifying second, there was nothing but white water. Then I saw one hand break the surface before another wave swallowed it. Without thinking, I dove in. The Pacific was colder than it looked. Every muscle in my body tightened as I pushed through the crashing waves. The current fought me immediately, pulling sideways instead of back toward shore. I spotted her several yards ahead. She wasn't screaming. She wasn't calling for help. She was sinking. I reached her just as another wave rolled over us. She slipped beneath the surface, and I grabbed the fabric of her dress before she disappeared into the darkness below. She struggled for only a moment. Then, she stopped. That frightened me more than anything. People who wanted to survive fought with every ounce of strength they had. She simply went limp. I wrapped one arm around her and kicked as hard as I could toward shore. Every wave felt like another wall. Every breath burned. Twice the current dragged us backward. I refused to let go. After what felt like an hour, but couldn't have been more than 5 exhausting minutes, my feet finally touched the sand beneath the water. I carried her the rest of the way. Her face was pale. Her lips had turned blue. I laid her carefully on the beach and checked for a pulse. Weak. Barely there. She wasn't breathing. Training I hadn't used in years returned automatically. Tilt her head. Clear the airway. 2 rescue breaths. Chest compressions. 1, 2, 3. Come on. 4, 5. Please don't die. Water spilled from her mouth. She coughed violently before gasping for air. The sweetest sound I had ever heard. I sat back, breathing just as hard as she was. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. The waves continued rolling onto the shore as if nothing extraordinary had happened. She slowly opened her eyes. They were unlike any eyes I had ever seen. Not because of their color, because they carried a sadness so deep it almost seemed impossible. She looked at me without surprise, without confusion, as though she had expected to see someone. You're safe," I said between breaths. "An ambulance is on the way." She kept staring. Then, in a calm voice that barely rose above the sound of the ocean, she asked a question I will never forget. "Why did you save me?" I blinked. "What? You shouldn't have." For a moment, I thought the near drowning had confused her. "You almost died." "I know." Her answer was frighteningly calm. "I didn't ask to be saved." A cold chill ran through me that had nothing to do with the ocean. Before I could respond, distant sirens echoed along the highway, overlooking the beach. She turned her head toward the sound. Fear suddenly replaced the emptiness in her eyes. Real fear. She grabbed my wrist with surprising strength. "Please," she whispered, "don't tell them my name." The ambulance arrived less than 5 minutes after the sirens first echoed across the cliffs. 2 paramedics rushed toward us while a sheriff's deputy followed, close behind. I stepped away to give them room, my clothes soaked and my heartbeat still refusing to slow down. One of the paramedics knelt beside the young woman and checked her pulse again. "Can you hear me?" he asked. She nodded weakly. "Good. Stay with us." The second medic looked at me. "Did she lose consciousness?" "For less than a minute," I answered. "She wasn't breathing when I brought her ashore." "You performed CPR?" "Yes." "You probably saved her life." I glanced at her. She didn't look grateful. She looked disappointed. The deputy opened a small notebook. "Sir, what's her name?" Before I could answer, she looked directly at me. There was fear in her eyes, the kind that had nothing to do with drowning. "Please." She never spoke the word, but I understood. "I don't know," I replied honestly. "You don't know her?" "No. Today was the first time I've ever seen her." The deputy frowned but continued writing. The paramedics helped her onto the stretcher. Just before they closed the ambulance doors, she looked back at me. For a brief second our eyes met. Then the ambulance disappeared down the coastal highway. I stood alone on the beach, staring at the empty road until the flashing lights vanished from sight. The sunrise no longer seemed beautiful. It felt strangely quiet. The following days became unusually difficult. I tried to return to my normal routine. Every morning, I photographed the waves, edited pictures in the afternoon, and delivered prints to local galleries around Malibu. But my thoughts always returned to the same woman. Why had she walked into the ocean? Why had she asked why I saved her? And why was she so afraid to tell anyone her name? Those questions followed me everywhere. For mornings later, I returned to the beach before dawn. The tide was lower than usual, exposing long stretches of wet sand that reflected the first colors of sunrise. I almost smiled when I saw her. She was sitting alone on a weathered piece of driftwood, watching the horizon. This time, she wasn't wearing the blue dress. She had on jeans, a gray sweater, and white sneakers. She looked healthier, but the sadness in her eyes remained. I walked closer. "I wasn't sure you'd come back," I admitted. She smiled faintly. Neither was I. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence didn't feel uncomfortable. It felt honest. "I'm Logan," I finally said. "I know. The paramedics told you?" She nodded. "I'm Claire." "Claire." "Claire Monroe. It suits you." She laughed softly for the first time. That's an unusual compliment. I've never been very good at introductions. I noticed. Her laugh faded almost as quickly as it appeared. We watched a group of dolphins surface in the distance before disappearing beneath the water again. "They always come this close?" she asked. "Only when the ocean is calm. I've never seen dolphins in the wild." "You've been missing out." "So I've been told." For the next hour, we talked about ordinary things. Books, movies, travel. She loved old mystery novels and black coffee. I admitted I couldn't survive without seafood tacos from a small food truck near the pier. She teased me for having predictable taste. I told her she smiled more than she realized. She immediately stopped smiling. I regretted saying it. When the conversation slowed, I asked the question that had been haunting me. "Can I ask you something?" "You already are." "Why were you really in the water that morning?" She looked toward the ocean instead of answering. "I don't know if I'm ready to tell you." "You don't have to." "I will." She took a slow breath. "But not today." I respected that. Some stories needed time before they could be spoken aloud. As we stood to leave, something slipped from her jacket pocket onto the sand. An old photograph. I picked it up before the wind could carry it away. It showed a smiling woman standing on this very beach. She looked remarkably like Claire. "My mother," Claire whispered as she carefully took the photograph back. "She loved this place." "What happened to her?" Claire stared at the picture for several long seconds. "Everyone says she drowned here 20 years ago." I'm sorry. She slowly shook her head. I don't believe them. What do you mean? I think someone lied. Before I could ask another question, she suddenly looked past me. Her expression changed instantly. The warmth disappeared from her face. Fear replaced it. I turned around. A black SUV had stopped in the parking lot overlooking the beach. Its engine was still running. The windows were too dark to see inside. Claire grabbed my arm. Her voice barely rose above a whisper. They found me. Then she let go, turned, and ran toward the cliffs without looking back even once. I stood frozen for a second as Claire disappeared up the narrow trail leading toward the cliffs. The black SUV remained parked above the beach, its engine still humming quietly. Whoever was inside never stepped out. Something about the vehicle felt wrong. It wasn't unusual to see expensive SUVs in Malibu, but this one hadn't arrived by accident. Claire's face had changed the moment she saw it. That wasn't the reaction of someone avoiding an awkward conversation. That was fear. Real fear. I started walking toward the parking lot, hoping to get a better look at the license plate, but before I reached the stairs, the SUV pulled away. It drove slowly down the highway until it disappeared around the bend. I memorized the first few characters of the plate, but not the entire number. It wasn't enough. I looked back toward the cliffs. Claire was gone. For the rest of the day, I couldn't focus on my work. Every photograph I edited looked lifeless. Every wave reminded me of the morning I'd pulled her from the ocean. Most people would have walked away by now. I should have. Instead, I found myself wondering whether she was safe. Late that evening, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Instead, I answered, "Hello." Silence. Then her voice. "It's Claire." I leaned back in my chair. "I've been worried." "I know. Are you all right?" "For now." There was a pause. "I owe you an explanation." "You don't owe me anything." "I do." Another pause. If you still want answers, meet me tomorrow morning." "Where?" "Not at the beach." She hesitated. "There's an old lighthouse north of Point Dumay." "I know it. Be there at 6. The line went dead. The next morning the sky was covered with thick gray clouds. The lighthouse stood alone above the rocky shoreline, surrounded by windswept grass and weathered fences. It hadn't been used in decades. Claire was already waiting. She wore a dark green jacket and held a paper coffee cup in both hands. "You came," she said. "You sounded like you needed someone." She smiled sadly. "I haven't had someone in a long time." We sat on a wooden bench overlooking the ocean. Neither of us spoke for several minutes. Finally, she reached into her backpack. She pulled out a worn leather journal. "This belonged to my mother." The cover was faded from age, corners bent, pages yellow. "I've read it 100 times," she whispered. "Every page. Except the last one." "Why not?" "Because it was torn out." She handed me the journal. The handwriting was elegant. The entries described sunsets, walks along the beach, small cafes, family memories. Nothing unusual, until the final complete page. "If anything happens to me, it wasn't an accident. Someone knows what I saw." I read the sentence twice, then a third time. My stomach tightened. "Claire. That's why I came back. You think someone killed your mother?" "I know someone did." "Did the police investigate?" "They called it drowning." "And you don't believe them?" She shook her head. "My mother was a competitive swimmer." I looked toward the crashing waves below. People didn't accidentally drown after swimming their whole lives. Unless someone made sure they did. "Why didn't you tell the police about the journal?" I asked. "I did. And it disappeared." "What?" "Someone removed it from the evidence locker." I stared at her. "You're serious?" I spent years believing I was imagining things. She looked at the ocean. But every answer I searched for kept disappearing. She reached into her backpack again. This time she removed the photograph I'd seen on the beach. "Turn it over." I did. On the back someone had written a single address. For 17, Ocean Crest Road. "What's there?" "I don't know." "You've never been?" I was too afraid. Afraid of what? Finding out I was right. We drove there together. The address led us away from the coastline and into the hills overlooking Malibu. After 20 minutes, we reached an abandoned house hidden behind overgrown trees. Every window was boarded shut. The mailbox had collapsed years ago. Nature had almost swallowed the property. Claire whispered, "This is it. You've never been here." She shook her head. I couldn't do it alone. We climbed the broken front steps. The front door was unlocked. Inside, dust covered everything. Old furniture stood exactly where someone had left it decades earlier. The air smelled of mold and forgotten memories. Then I noticed something strange. There wasn't a single family photograph anywhere in the house. Not one. Almost as if someone had removed every trace of the people who had once lived there. Claire slowly walked into what had once been the living room. Suddenly she stopped. "Logan, what is it?" She pointed toward the fireplace. Carved into the wooden mantel was a symbol, a lighthouse, exactly the same lighthouse where we'd met that morning. Before either of us could understand what it meant, a loud floorboard creaked upstairs. We weren't alone. Someone else was inside the house. The sound above us lasted only a second. A single creak, then silence. Claire instinctively grabbed my arm. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. I did. Her fingers tightened around my sleeve. "We should leave." Every reasonable part of my brain agreed with her. But curiosity has a strange way of overpowering fear, especially when you've spent the last few weeks chasing answers that refuse to stay hidden. "I'll go first," I said quietly. "Logan, if someone's here, we need to know." I picked up a heavy flashlight lying on an old table near the entrance. It barely worked, but the dim beam was better than nothing. The staircase groaned beneath every step. Dust floated through the air, illuminated by the weak light. Halfway upstairs, I stopped. Nothing. No voices. No footsteps. Only the wind pushing against the old windows. Claire followed close behind. "You think someone lives here?" she whispered. "I don't know. But someone was definitely upstairs." We reached the hallway. 3 doors stood open. The 4th was closed. Unlike everything else in the house, that door looked newer. Someone had replaced it. I slowly turned the hand. Locked. Claire looked at me. "What now?" I stepped back, then kicked the door beside the lock. It didn't move. The second kick cracked the frame. The third sent the door crashing inward. The room was almost empty. 1 desk, 1 chair, 1 filing cabinet. Nothing else, except fresh footprints in the dust. They led toward an open window. I rushed over. Outside, I caught a glimpse of someone dressed in black disappearing into the trees behind the house. "Hey!" I shouted. The figure never looked back. I climbed through the window and chased after them. Branches slapped against my face as I ran through the woods. I was gaining ground. Then the stranger reached a dirt road where a motorcycle was hidden behind the trees. The engine roared to life. Within seconds, they disappeared down the road, leaving only a cloud of dust behind. Damn it. I stood there catching my breath before walking back to the house. Claire was waiting outside. "You saw someone?" "Yeah." "Who?" I couldn't see their face. "What were they doing here?" "I think they were looking for the same thing we are." Her face turned pale. "Or making sure we never find it." Before leaving, I searched the small office one more time. The filing cabinet was locked. This time, I forced it open with the flashlight. Most drawers were empty. Whoever had been there recently had already removed almost everything. Almost. In the bottom drawer sat a single brown envelope. No name. No label. Inside were newspaper clippings dating back 20 years. Every article talked about the same incident. Local woman presumed dead after drowning. Police close investigation. No evidence of foul play. Claire sat on the dusty floor reading every word. "They lied," she whispered. "Look." She pointed to one sentence buried near the bottom of an article. Witnesses reported seeing a black SUV leaving the area shortly before the victim disappeared. Police stated the vehicle was unrelated to the investigation. My heart skipped. A black SUV. The same kind that followed me on the beach. Neither of us spoke for several seconds. That couldn't be a coincidence, could it? As we prepared to leave, something fell out of the envelope. A folded map of Malibu. Several locations had been circled in red ink. The beach, the lighthouse, this abandoned house, and one final location farther inland. An old marina. Written beside it were only 3 words. Ask Daniel Brooks. Do you know who that is? I asked. Claire slowly nodded. My mother mentioned him once. Who was he? I think. She frowned, trying to remember. I think he repaired boats. Is he still alive? I don't know. There's one way to find out. The marina looked forgotten by time. Most of the docks were empty. Rust covered the railings. Several fishing boats hadn't moved in years. An elderly man wearing a faded baseball cap was repairing fishing nets outside a small workshop. His beard was completely gray. His hands were rough from decades of hard work. Excuse me, I called. He looked up. Can I help you? We're looking for Daniel Brooks. The old man's expression immediately changed. Who's asking? Claire stepped forward. My name is Claire Monroe. For a long moment, he simply stared at her. Then his eyes widened. You look exactly like your mother. Claire froze. You knew her. Daniel slowly removed his cap. I hoped I'd never see this day. You knew she didn't drown. He closed his eyes. I knew. My pulse quickened. What really happened? Daniel looked around to make sure nobody else was nearby. Then he quietly unlocked the workshop door. Come inside. The room smelled of old wood, oil, and salt water. He locked the door behind us. Only then did he speak. 20 years ago, your mother came to me terrified. Terrified of what? Claire asked. She had photographed something she was never supposed to see. What was it? Daniel walked to an old cabinet and removed a small metal box. I've kept this hidden ever since. He placed it on the table. Inside was an old film camera, several undeveloped rolls of film, and a silver key attached to a faded tag. The tag had only one word written on it. Locker 117. Before any of us could say another word, 3 loud knocks echoed against the workshop door. Then a man's voice called from outside. Daniel. We know they're in there. Every drop of blood seemed to leave Claire's face. Daniel looked at me with fear I had never seen in an old man's eyes. They found us. For a moment, no one inside the workshop moved. The only sound was the wind rattling the loose metal roof. Then came another knock. Harder this time. Daniel, the man outside called. Open the door. We only want to talk. Daniel let out a bitter laugh. They always say that. Claire looked at him. Who are they? He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he pulled the curtains shut and switched off the lights. The workshop fell into near darkness, with only thin lines of sunlight slipping through the cracks in the walls. There are 3 of them, Daniel whispered after peeking through a small window. Same black SUV. My stomach tightened. They've been following Claire. They've been following this secret for 20 years. Another voice came from outside. We know you have the key. Claire instinctively reached for the silver key lying on the table. Daniel quickly covered it with his hand. If they get this, he said quietly, everything your mother died for disappears forever. I stared at him. Tell us the truth. All of it. He took a deep breath. 20 years ago, I repaired boats for almost everyone in Malibu. One evening your mother came here shaking. She had been taking photographs along the cliffs when she accidentally captured something happening near the private marina. What did she photograph? Claire asked. I never saw the pictures. You never developed them? No. Why? Because she told me if anyone saw those negatives before the right time, neither of us would stay alive. Claire slowly lowered her eyes. My mother trusted you. Daniel nodded. She gave me the camera, the film, and that key. She told me to hide them. And Locker 117. It's in the old train station in downtown Los Angeles. The lockers were removed years ago, but one section was preserved because the building became a historical landmark. I looked at the key. So whatever we're looking for has been sitting there for 20 years. Daniel nodded again. I promised I would never touch it. The silence was interrupted by the sound of metal scraping against the workshop door. "They're trying to force it open," Claire whispered. "We have to leave," I said. Daniel shook his head. "Not through the front." He walked to the back of the workshop and moved an old wooden shelf. Hidden behind it was a narrow door. "I built this after your mother disappeared." The door opened into a narrow passage that led behind the neighboring storage buildings. "Go," Daniel said. "What about you?" Claire asked. "I'll keep them busy." "No, Claire." She looked ready to argue. Daniel gently placed his hands on her shoulders. "Your mother trusted me with your future. Don't waste the chance she gave you." Before Claire could answer, the front door shook violently. The hinges groaned. "They're coming in," I shouted. Daniel pushed us toward the passage. "Run." Reluctantly, Claire and I slipped outside. The hidden path wound between abandoned fishing sheds until it reached the parking lot on the opposite side of the marina. We climbed into my truck just as the workshop door splintered behind us. I looked in the mirror. 3 men dressed in dark jackets rushed inside. None of them noticed us driving away. Neither of us spoke for nearly 20 minutes. The Pacific Coast Highway stretched endlessly beside us, but neither of us admired the view. Claire kept staring at the silver key in her hands. "I should have come back years ago," she whispered. "You were a child. I was 14. You still lost your mother." She leaned her head against the window. "I always believed there was something wrong with the official story." "You were right." She closed her eyes. "But I never imagined someone would still be protecting the lie after all these years." By early afternoon, we reached downtown Los Angeles. The old Union Station looked almost unchanged despite the passing decades. Tourists wandered through the halls without realizing they were walking past a mystery that had survived 20 years. The preserved locker section stood behind a small historical exhibit. Most lockers were permanently sealed. A security guard sat nearby, reading a newspaper. "We'll have to wait," I whispered. Claire nodded. 10 minutes later, the guard stood up to help a family, asking for directions. That was our chance. We walked quickly to locker 117. The silver key slid into the lock as though it had never been used. Claire looked at me. "You ready?" "No." "Me neither." She slowly turned the key. The lock clicked. The metal door opened with a long, rusty squeal. Inside sat only one object, a small waterproof case. Nothing else. Claire carefully lifted it out. It was surprisingly heavy. Her hands trembled. "Open it," I said. She unclipped the latches. Inside were dozens of undeveloped film negatives, a folded letter, and a VHS tape, labeled in black marker. June 18, 2006. Claire unfolded the letter first. It was written in her mother's handwriting. Her voice almost broke as she began reading aloud. "If you're holding this, it means I failed to protect the truth. Claire, if this reaches you one day, know that everything I did was for you. Trust no one until the photographs are developed. They will explain everything." A tear rolled down Claire's cheek. She carefully folded the letter. "We need to develop the film." Before I could answer, a familiar voice echoed through the hallway behind us. "I was hoping you'd save us the trouble." We turned around. Standing only 20 feet away was one of the men from the marina. He wasn't alone. 2 others blocked the exits. The tallest man smiled calmly. "Hand me the case and no one gets hurt." I stepped in front of Claire. He looked directly into my eyes. "You've become a much bigger problem than the man who pulled a stranger out of the ocean." Then he slowly reached inside his jacket. And this time, he wasn't reaching for a phone. The moment the man reached inside his jacket, every instinct I had screamed at me to move. Instead of pulling out a gun, he held up a small badge. "Private security," he said with a smug smile. "It doesn't matter who you are," I replied. "Get out of our way." He laughed. I wasn't asking. The 2 men beside him stepped forward. People continued walking through the station, completely unaware that something dangerous was unfolding only a few feet away. To everyone else, it probably looked like a heated argument. Claire gripped the waterproof case tighter. The leader noticed. "That belongs to us." "No," Claire answered, her voice steadier than I expected. "It belonged to my mother." His smile disappeared. Your mother should have minded her own business. Those words confirmed everything. He knew exactly who she was. Before he could take another step, a station announcement echoed through the hall. A large group of tourists poured into the corridor between us, temporarily blocking their path. Run! I shouted. Claire didn't hesitate. We pushed through the crowd, racing toward the main entrance. I heard angry voices behind us, but the tourists slowed the men just enough to give us a chance. Outside, we jumped into my truck. I started the engine, and we pulled into traffic just as the black SUV emerged from a station parking lot. They're following us, Claire said, looking into the side mirror. I know. The chase lasted nearly 20 minutes through downtown Los Angeles. I took random turns, cut through side streets, and even drove into an underground parking garage before exiting through another ramp. When we finally reached the freeway again, the SUV was gone. Claire let out a long breath. I think we lost them. For now. There was only one person I trusted enough to help us. My older brother, Ryan, owned a small photography studio in Santa Monica. Unlike me, he specialized in restoring old film and historical photographs. If anyone could develop 20-year-old negatives without damaging them, it was him. When we arrived, Ryan looked surprised to see me. You look terrible, he said. I've had a long week. His eyes shifted toward Claire. And who's this? A friend. Claire smiled politely. Ryan laughed. A friend who looks like she hasn't slept in days. That's also true. After locking the front door, I placed the waterproof case on his work table. I need a favor. He opened the case. His expression changed instantly. These negatives are old. Can you develop them? He looked at the date written on the envelope. Where did you get these? It's a long story. Ryan studied my face for several seconds. You always tell me the long stories. This one could get people hurt. He became serious. I'll help. Developing old film wasn't quick. Ryan carefully prepared the chemicals while Claire sat quietly beside the window, reading her mother's letter again and again. I watched her from across the room. You okay? She smiled weakly. I don't know. You don't have to be strong all the time. I've been pretending to be strong since I was 14. I didn't know what to say, so I simply sat beside her. Sometimes silence helped more than words. She looked at me. You could walk away from this. I could. You'd be safer. I know. Then why are you still here? I thought about it for a moment. Because the day I pulled you out of the ocean, I stopped thinking of you as a stranger. Her eyes filled with tears. No one spoke again. An hour later, Ryan entered the room carrying several freshly developed photographs. His face was pale. You need to see these. Claire stood immediately. Ryan spread the photographs across the table. The first images showed a quiet marina at sunset, fishing boats, wooden docks, nothing unusual. Then came the next photograph, a luxury yacht, several men unloading large wooden crates. Another photograph. One of the crates had broken open. Inside were stacks of cash, millions of dollars. The next image showed the same men arguing with someone outside the frame. Ryan slowly slid another photograph forward. Claire gasped. Her mother stood there, camera in her hands. She had accidentally photographed the entire operation. The final picture explained everything. One of the men had noticed her. He was pointing directly at the camera. His face was perfectly clear. Ryan looked at me. Who is that? I didn't recognize him. Claire suddenly froze. I've seen him before. Where? She picked up the photograph with trembling hands. My mother had one picture of him in our house. Who is he? She swallowed hard. He wasn't a criminal. Then who? He was the mayor of Malibu. The room fell completely silent. Ryan stared at the photograph. You're telling me the mayor was involved? Claire nodded slowly. My mother always said powerful people can hide the darkest secrets. I looked through the remaining photographs. There was one more. It had been tucked beneath the others. This one was blurry, but something caught my attention. Parked beside the yacht was the exact same black SUV that had followed us on the beach. Only it wasn't new. It was 20 years old. The same vehicle. The same license plate. My pulse quickened. That's impossible. Ryan leaned closer. What? I pointed at the photograph. The SUV hasn't changed. Claire stared at it, then at me. Before either of us could understand how that was possible, every light inside the studio suddenly went out. Darkness swallowed the room. A second later, the sound of breaking glass echoed from the front entrance. Someone had just entered the building. The sound of shattered glass echoed through the studio. Nobody moved. For a second, we simply listened. Footsteps. Slow. Careful. More than one person. Ryan quietly switched off the emergency lights before whispering, "Get into the darkroom." Claire grabbed the envelope containing the photographs while I picked up the metal tripod standing beside the camera equipment. It wasn't much of a weapon, but it was better than empty hands. We slipped into the darkroom and closed the door without making a sound. Through the narrow crack, I watched 3 figures enter the studio. Flashlights swept across the walls. "They're still here," one of the men muttered. "Find the negatives." Another voice answered. "And if you find the girl." A short pause. "Finish what should have been finished 20 years ago." Claire covered her mouth to stop herself from gasping. I gently squeezed her hand. She looked at me. For the first time since we'd met, I didn't see fear in her eyes. I saw determination. Ryan leaned close. "There's another exit." He pointed toward a narrow service hallway leading to the alley behind the building. "You two go." "What about you?" I whispered. "I'll distract them." "I'm not leaving you. You don't have a choice." Before I could argue, Ryan pushed over a shelf filled with old camera cases. The loud crash echoed through the studio. "There," one of the intruders shouted. All 3 rushed toward the noise. "Now," Ryan whispered. Claire and I ran. Rain had begun falling the moment we stepped outside. Within minutes, it became a heavy storm. Lightning flashed across the sky as we hurried toward my truck. Claire looked exhausted. "We can't keep running forever." "I know. So what do we do?" I stared at the envelope containing the photographs. "We stop hiding." That evening we drove back to Malibu. Not because it was safe, because every answer pointed there. The lighthouse, the beach, the marina. Everything began there. Everything would end there. Daniel answered his phone on the second ring. "I thought they caught you." "They almost did." "You still have the photographs?" "Yes." "Good." His voice became serious. "Meet me at the lighthouse. Tonight. Before sunrise." "Why?" "Because there's something your mother's letter never mentioned." The storm grew stronger as we reached the cliffs. Waves crashed violently against the rocks below. The lighthouse stood in darkness except for one small lantern burning inside. Daniel was waiting. He looked more nervous than ever. "You weren't followed?" "I don't think so." "You'd better be right." He unlocked a wooden chest hidden beneath the old staircase. Inside lay dozens of newspaper articles, maps, photographs, and handwritten notes collected over 2 decades. "I've spent 20 years trying to finish what Claire's mother started." Claire looked at him. "Why didn't you tell anyone?" "I did. No one believed me." He handed us another photograph. Unlike the others, this one showed the face of a much younger man. "The mayor?" I asked. Daniel nodded. "He disappeared 12 years ago." Claire frowned. "If he disappeared, who's chasing us?" Daniel took a deep breath. "His son." Neither of us spoke. He inherited everything. "The money. The business." "What business?" Daniel looked toward the ocean. "Smuggling." He pointed toward the old marina. For decades, expensive yachts entered the harbor at night carrying cash, stolen artwork, rare jewelry. Whatever powerful people wanted moved without questions. And Claire's mother photographed it. Exactly. Claire slowly sat down. "So they killed her." Daniel closed his eyes. "I believe they intended to scare her." "What happened?" "She ran." His voice broke. "She reached the cliffs during a storm." I looked at the crashing waves below. The same weather. Daniel nodded. "They chased her." Claire's eyes filled with tears. "So she didn't simply drown?" "No. They cornered her." Silence filled the lighthouse. Only the wind spoke. Suddenly, Daniel looked out the window. They're here. Headlights climbed the narrow road leading toward the lighthouse. Not one vehicle. 3 black SUVs. They found us again, Claire whispered. Daniel handed me a small flare gun. It's not much. It'll do. The vehicles stopped outside. Doors slammed shut. 6 men stepped into the rain. The leader walked toward the entrance carrying a flashlight. He looked almost identical to the man in the old photograph. The mayor's son. He smiled as though this were nothing more than a business meeting. You've made this far more complicated than necessary, he called through the rain. Claire stepped beside me. You murdered my mother. No. He shrugged. Fear did. You chased her. She had something that belonged to us. I raised the flare gun. Take one more step. He laughed. You won't shoot. He was wrong. I fired. The burning flare exploded into the storm, striking the ground just in front of him. The sudden burst of light forced everyone backward. Daniel shouted, Go! Claire and I ran through the rear exit of the lighthouse toward the cliff path. Rain made every rock dangerously slippery. Behind us, footsteps grew closer. The men were gaining on us. Claire suddenly lost her footing. She slipped. I grabbed her hand just before she fell over the edge. She was hanging above the crashing waves, exactly where I had saved for the first time. Only now, I was beginning to lose my grip. For one terrifying second, nothing existed except Claire's hand and mine. The rain hammered against the cliffs, making the rocks as slippery as ice. Below us, the Pacific crashed into the jagged shoreline with enough force to shake the ground beneath my knees. Logan, Claire cried, I've got you. I wasn't sure if that was true. Her fingers were slipping. Every second felt like an hour. I dug my boots into the wet ground and pulled with everything I had. Pain shot through my shoulder. I refused to let go. Not again. With one final effort, I managed to drag her back onto solid ground. We both collapsed, breathing so hard that neither of us could speak. Claire wrapped her arms around me. For the first time since we'd met, she cried openly. I don't want to lose anyone else, she whispered. You won't. I almost did. I looked into her eyes. No, not this time. Behind us, angry voices echoed through the storm. They're over here. We stood and ran toward the old service road leading away from the lighthouse. Daniel had stayed behind to slow them down. I prayed he was still alive. As we reached my truck, my phone rang. It was Ryan. Logan, where are you? Near the lighthouse. I've already called the FBI. The FBI? I developed digital copies of every photograph before the men broke into my studio. My heart skipped. You what? I sent everything to a federal investigator I know through a historical fraud case. They're on their way. Relief washed over me. For the first time in days, we weren't fighting alone. The black SUVs appeared behind us just as I started the engine. They followed us down the winding coastal road. Rain reduced visibility to almost nothing. One SUV accelerated and slammed into the back of my truck. Claire grabbed the dashboard. They're trying to push us off the road. I know. Another impact. Harder this time. The truck skidded sideways before I regained control. Red and blue lights suddenly appeared ahead. Then more. Several FBI vehicles and sheriff's deputies blocked the highway. The SUVs tried to turn around. Too late. Within seconds, armed agents surrounded every vehicle. The chase was over. I climbed out of the truck with my hands raised until an agent shouted, Mr. Hayes. Yes. We've got it from here. Claire stepped out beside me. The leader of the group, the same man who had chased us through the lighthouse, attempted to run. He made it only a few yards before 2 agents tackled him onto the wet pavement. Watching the handcuffs close around his wrists felt almost unreal. 20 years. 2 decades of lies. Finally ending. The following morning the storm had disappeared. The ocean looked peaceful, as though it had never been violent at all. Claire and I stood on the beach where everything had begun. FBI investigators had already confirmed what the photographs revealed. The former mayor had operated a massive smuggling network using private yachts for years. After his disappearance, his son had taken control, along with the people who had helped cover up the crimes. Claire's mother had unknowingly photographed one of their largest illegal shipments. When they realized what she had seen, they chased her. She had fled toward the cliffs during a storm. She never made it back. The investigation had been buried by corrupt officials. Until now, Daniel was officially recognized as the key witness who had protected the evidence for 2 decades. Ryan's digital copies ensured nothing could ever disappear again. Justice had arrived late, but it had arrived. A year passed. Life slowly became ordinary again. Claire published a best-selling book telling her mother's story and exposing the truth behind the corruption that had haunted Malibu for decades. Daniel retired peacefully near the coast. Ryan joked that I finally had something more interesting to photograph than sunsets. He wasn't wrong, because every morning I photographed the same person, Claire. Sometimes she laughed at me for taking too many pictures. Sometimes she stole the camera and photographed me instead. For the first time in years, both of us had learned what peace felt like. One warm summer morning, I asked her to meet me before sunrise. She smiled the moment she recognized the place. The same beach, the same stretch of sand, the same ocean. "This is where we met," she said softly. "No." She looked confused. "This is where my life began." I reached into my pocket and removed a small velvet box. Her eyes widened. I knelt on one knee. "Claire Monroe, the day I pulled you out of the ocean, I thought I was saving a stranger." My voice trembled. "I had no idea you were about to save me too." Tears filled her eyes. "I don't need a perfect life," I continued. "I don't need perfect days. I only need you." I opened the ring box. "Will you marry me?" For a second she couldn't speak. Then she laughed through her tears. The brightest smile I had ever seen spread across her face. "Yes." She threw her arms around me as the first rays of sunlight rose above the Pacific. A year earlier, she had asked me one question I could never forget. "Why did you save me?" This time she looked into my eyes, kissed my forehead, and whispered the answer herself. "Thank you for saving my life." As the waves rolled gently onto the shore, I realized something I had never understood before. Sometimes the ocean doesn't take people away. Sometimes it brings them exactly where they were always meant to be. The end.